Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches. We love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, Stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Thursday after dinner show. Hopefully you guys have had a great week and you're looking forward getting ready for the Easter weekend, spending time with family. I know the Sweet 16 starts tonight, so thanks for taking the 30 minutes to an hour of your time to hang out with the Misfit Nation. We got a good one tonight. A good friend of the show is coming on. I've had to twist his arm to come on this time. I've been trying to poke and prod him to come on for a long time. He's been pretty busy going down that retirement trail. Now he's retired, and all of a sudden he has a great beard. He looks fabulous now. He's the director of military and veterans initiatives for Tennessee. He's the first director. He's been charged to build additional infrastructure to make Tennessee the destination of choice for veterans and their families. He serves as the director of the Tennessee Governor's Veteran Fellowship Program and the chief of staff of the Tri-Stars and Stripes. He's the co-founder of Grid Square Recon with his amazing household 6, Sarah. He's involved with every veteran organization I think I can name or you can name. He's there for veterans. He's there. He's an advocate. And so without further ado, let's bring on the one, the only Chris Lancia. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. It's always funny, you know, when
I'm
people
trying
talk about you like that, you're like, that's not really me. I'm not that important.
I'm so cool. I'm humble and kind. I'm the best man, but I'm not. I mean, look at the fabulous beard. We were just talking about this in the green room. I mean, this is only what, 6 weeks now?
Yeah, yeah.
10
I think
weeks?
we're coming up on 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
know, it's
wish
one
I
of
had
these
your.
too with the we know the beard, like you never really know, right? Until you go for it. So
Went full in. You went all in, and that's what you got to do. You either go full or none. I don't want to say the other word. Full or none. So, Chris,
that's it.
I gave about a 2 sentence thing about you here, just about basically what you're doing now. Let's tell the audience a little bit about you. I mean, you did 26 years in the military. Tell them a little bit about that and how we got to where we are.
Okay. Yeah. So and of course, you know, I'm going to date myself here, and you know, no surprise for you, but so I joined up in '92, and I first signed up as a UH-60 Black Hawk repairer / crew chief, and so I did 9 years working on Black Hawks, flying around. I mean, one of the most amazing jobs in the Army. Just, you know, getting to play with helicopters and fly around, you know, America, and of course, you know, foreign places as well. So, but I got out in 2001. Actually, I got out of the Army about 8 weeks prior to the events of 9/11. Yeah, so it was just crazy times, right? And was, you know, gonna have to go back to school, and then from there, our initial goal was we were going to try and come, you know, basically do ROTC and come right back on active duty. But we went down the road of like, let's see if the grass is greener on the other side. And so I got a job. I was working as a journalist. I started as a high school sports reporter, ended out running a small bureau down in Effingham County, Georgia, just outside of Savannah. And we were right by Fort Stewart, Hunter Army Airfield, 3rd ID, constantly seeing soldiers in uniform. And Sarah, my wife, like she kind of noticed it. She's like, you're feeling the pull, aren't you? And we were. And then it did not hurt the Army's sake that as a degreed professional in the journalism field, coming back in as an E4, I was making more money. So we came back in 07, and then you know, I did some time in logistics. Went to OCS, stayed in logistics, and then my last job was a public affairs officer, and very fortunate to have closed out my career coming back to the 160th Special Ops Aviation Regiment on Fort Campbell. And so one of the best places. It's one of those. It's interesting. It's one of those units that you get the same feel you get on deployment when you're in it, because you know you're really there for each other. And I know from personal experience, sometimes there's units where the connection isn't there, right? So yeah, but that took us to where we are here. And as I was coming out of the military, I had the opportunity to serve as a governor's veteran fellow as we stood that program up, and that just led to being asked if I'd run it. And yeah, here we are.
That's outstanding. Being in the right place at the right time kind of helps you there, especially. And like you said, 160th is a great place to, I guess, sunset your career. As you did, you were able to stay there and meet amazing human beings over there, and amazing things, and still doing amazing things for God and country. I mean, it's not many stories that come out of any of the last 20 years, all 60th, and you got to be part of that history for the last 5-6 years, right? So that's amazing.
Yeah, no, and I was fortunate to be in that unit really 3 times, because my first time was here, got to be you know, in the regiment, and then I was able to serve in 3rd Battalion for a short period because I got called to go over and take command in 3rd ID, and then coming back here, you know, to do it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a great place to serve, a great place to, you know, to your point, to kind of sunset the career, because one thing that USASOC has been trying to do a much better job of is helping with the transition process. And so, you know, the Army Special Operations Command actually has complementary transition programs. I think at just about every unit at this point. And so you have the DoD mandated, you know, TAP process, but then the units have folks that are trying to help as well. Because I think, you know, and you and I talked a little bit about this in the past, but that personalized transition thing is a huge deal right? To be able to really have somebody help you try and figure out, what's your purpose, what's going to get you out of bed every morning and keep you wanting to have that drive going once you take the uniform off. And it's a really hard mission to do. And TAP, unfortunately, is just, they're not resourced the way they need to be to accomplish that mission, right? So being in one of those units that has the opportunity to help that way, it's a huge opportunity when you're coming out to be able to have that assistance.
Definitely. My neighbor across the street, he just retired from 160th this weekend. Well, he did his ceremony this weekend. He actually went back to his unit, report 160th down at Hunter because he spent most of his time with 160th there. Went down there to do it, and that's just a testament to the unit. Hey, this is where you did most of your time. Yeah, you can go down there and have your ceremony there and spend it with the guys and gals that you served with. And like you said, yeah, and we've talked about this at Black Rifle Coffee for probably hours, sitting there talking about the things that we need to do to help our brothers and sisters come out. And the one thing we always talk about is purpose. The other thing is personal touch. And that's the thing with transition for those on the side of the fence. On the conventional side, it's usually just a check the block tap thing. All right, they're in the class, good. They went through it, so they're good to go. It's not really the answer, but I think it's getting better. They're learning as they go. And the time I got out till now, there's a lot of things have changed, hopefully, and that you were able to see it firsthand. So hopefully it has changed a little bit.
Yeah, and we're seeing more with, I think, the veteran service organization kind of side starting to help in, a little bit more with those things. I think there's been some spots in that for a while, but there's a lot. I think there's enhanced focus right now on things like, the right culture, stuff like that. For the longest time, a lot of that transition stuff was just get a job, any job, right? And I think what's helped now is people are starting to really focus heavier on, hey, it's not just any job, right? What can we do to help you find the job that's worthwhile to you, right? That's going to, it gives you, it doesn't have to give you the purpose and everything else, but, it's a good enough wage for you to take care of your family, right? It's in the place you want to, where your family wants to be, right? Like a lot of those little things like that's where some of the external organizations I think are really starting to help out because, again, and this isn't a bang on the tap process, right? Because, they have a mission it's impossible anyway, what they're handed to do, right? Hey, design a program that'll impact a 19-year-old who's getting out of the Army because he or she was hurt, but also will impact a 49-year-old who did 35 years. Like that mission, like that program does not exist, right? But that's the mission they were handed, right? And so trying to make that happen, it's not possible, right? So that's where having some external help to really start to personalize some of the transition processes helps foster that successful piece. And honestly, that's one of the biggest things when we start talking about things like suicide prevention, right? Like having worthwhile employment, that's a huge part of it, right? Like if you can start doing those things, and that's a preventative measure, right? That helps you from going down all those rabbit holes of the stress and, having fights with, your family members about money and why you're on the couch, like all that kind of stuff, right? So that piece is such a huge critical part of the transition process that really keeps a lot of negative things from creeping in on us.
Exactly. And just last week, we had that Marine. He wrote a letter, left a note saying going to the bridge, left his phone, no one knew where he was. But in that same case, the whole veteran sphere went nuts about it. They put his picture on every group you can go in. It was there. And they finally found him right here in Tennessee. I think by Kingsport, they found him safe and sound. They got him back home. And that's the value of the group setting. Like the VSO set up all these little groups for people on Facebook and all the social media sites where people can just, hey, have you seen X? Bam, this guy was found. That's just a testament to that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. And I think that's where having that network comes in, right? And you made a comment earlier, we were talking about, my journey and being right place, right time. But some of it too comes down to that network piece, right? Like when we say, hey, like give me a call, let me know, that's not something that we're just saying because it's a turn of phrase that we were taught to say. Like I would never run into one of us who had that call come in and turn someone away, right? Like we say those things because like, hey, we took care of each other while we're in uniform. We got to keep doing it when we're out of uniform, right? And so it's that thing of but I look at it too. It's a two-way street, right? So when we start talking about things like suicide prevention, I always hear people say this thing of, oh man, I wish he or she had called me. Like, well, why didn't we call them, right? If we're taking care of each other enough, right, we should be noticing, hey, you know what? Rich doesn't seem like his normal self. Let me give him a holler and find out if everything's okay. Right. But that's the part I think we got to do a little bit better at, just as a community, is not just saying we're here, but like actually getting to know each other and reaching out and grabbing a brother or a sister that's in a tough place, and, not putting the onus on them to call us when they're having a hard time. Right.
You're in a spiral, and I want you to call me when you're in a spiral, or I can call you when you're at McDonald's the day before not getting the ice cream. The ice cream machine's broken again, and I have to be there. I can take you to a place that actually has an ice cream machine that works. And it may not be the best ice cream or this ice cream that's at McDonald's, but you'll get ice cream that day, because I'm going to make sure you have it that day and the next day, that if I call you the day before. And that's what we need to do. And just a couple of years ago, before I went to Louisiana, Harriet, knowing she was watching the signs of me as the leader of the chapter, seeing that I was way too much outside the chapter and there was no way I can focus. And she said, "Hey, do you need a break?" And I think we can swap positions, because she knew at that point I needed it. So she reached out and did that. And that's exactly what you just said, knowing your friends and knowing who's around you and knowing when they need to step back or step up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have your shirt on there, Grid Square Recon. And I mean, I love the pictures you and Sarah take, and you take me on tours everywhere, places in Tennessee I never even heard of before you guys have taken me to. And I know I have to go there because you guys send these pictures. What made you come up with the idea, and where do you see yourselves in the next few years with it?
So it's kind of, and I'm glad you asked and set that up for us, and I'm glad you enjoy the pictures, because you never know, right, how those are being received. But so it's interesting how it started out was the idea we had initially was, hey, we can do almost like a travel blog kind of thing, right? We can go around and we can tell people, hey, here's a cool place, go check this out. But then, doing some research on my own, and actually through the Travis Manion Foundation, when I was doing the Spartan leadership program, one of the outcomes there is you come up with a community impact project. And mine initially was not going to be this. And when I switched very late in the game, and the director, Dr. Camille Miner, like when I called her to let her know that I was going to make a switch, she just said to me straight up, like, I was waiting for this. Like, I knew that this was where you needed to be. And so what Sarah and I looked at is there's a lot of studies. Blue Star Families has done a lot with this, with their annual surveys. But one thing that military families constantly struggle with is a sense of belonging. Right? Because everywhere we are, we have shallow roots, because we're only there for 2 or 3 years generally, and we're moving on somewhere else. Right. And so it's hard to really feel like you belong in a place. And it's compounded by the fact that whenever you get orders somewhere, and Rich, you know this because we've lived it, right? Inevitably, the first thing you hear from someone is, man, that place sucks. Right. And so you're like, okay, how bad can it be? And let me look it up. And what do I find? Validation that it sucks, or information that's like 10 years old, right? So now I have to move my family there, but now I have the added stress that my family's going, I don't want to go to that place because it sucks, right? And so the whole idea behind Grid Square Recon is to go to a military installation. We're going to start with Fort Campbell because we live here, we know the place, and Clarksville has such a great relationship, and as well as Hopkinsville and Montgomery County, Christian County. But the idea is to build out an infrastructure that says, for lack of a better term, it'd be like a resource guide, but online, where you can go, hey, like, here's some awesome restaurants, and here's like the Cohen Center, and here's like, and just be able to start showcasing the people in the community, not necessarily veterans, not necessarily military connected, right? But just people in the community that are doing great things. And that way, when I get those orders, I get that word and I go to look it up, I find information that's relevant and current, and I go, actually, place looks like it might be some cool stuff there for us, right? And I have a little bit of hope behind that, right? And then when I get there, my family can immediately jump into doing things and start to get that sense of belonging, because we're back to, I kind of feel like I knew what I was coming into, and I'm finding the things that my family enjoys, and I feel like I'm a part of the community. So all that to come together, but that's where the idea came from, is really trying to help foster a stronger sense of belonging for military families as they get into it. A cool side benefit to it that we've identified is there's a ton of content creators in the military spouse community. And so this is the thing where you can set this up, and then military spouses will keep the content current and relevant, right, by continuing to contribute to it, because they're giving back to their own community. It's something that's portable and easy to do at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the kids are in school or whatever, right? And be able to do that. So it's kind of cool because now I think we have the opportunity to help with the deployment piece that's difficult on the military spouse side and allow them to, harness some of the creativity that they have and really start to help out, our own community by showcasing these things.
Definitely. When you were talking about one thing you can use, I remember ACS used to have the printouts they used to have for things. Oh, you're going to Fort Riley. Let me print this little thing up about Fort Riley, like you said, 10 years prior. So when I was leaving Fort Campbell the first time to go to Fort Riley, they gave me the printout, and it was all about the big red one, the big red ones at Fort Riley, and they were already gone. They were gone.
Yeah.
They were in Germany. I said, well, the red one's not there. I said, why am I going there? So, and we didn't want in tornadoes. That's the first thing everyone was saying: tornadoes, 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 tornadoes. So I've never been in a tornado. What could be cool about a tornado? And then what happens? A tornado hits Clarksville right before I leave. So I got my taste before I got to go. I get to Fort Riley. I said, this is in the middle of nowhere. That book was nowhere near correct. Someone needs to rewrite that book or maybe put some effort into it. And that's exactly what we're bridging that gap now. And like you said, with the content creators that can help you out and push things forward, it's going to be amazing as you hit each base or as many bases as possible for you, Sarah.
Yeah, no, really looking forward to it. And I think the neat part is being able to spread it out to all the different, branches as well. Really get in there and, and eventually down the road. And we've got some folks that have, offered to help with things like, at some point building out an app, and having that. So then you can go do something like that. And I think it can become an entire ecosystem once it's up and running. And there's a lot of possibility there. And from what we've seen, there's nobody really doing this particular thing, right? The things that we found are stuff like you mentioned with those little booklets, or maybe like a local real estate firm that's kind of doing something. But usually with those things, there's some sort of an ulterior motive, right, that's involved in that. Hey, we want you to buy a house or rent an apartment or whatever. And this is like, hey, man, the ulterior motive here is that we want your family to feel like you belong in those places that you're going. So that way you have a better experience as a family unit, right? And honestly, you start looking at, some of the other issues the military is facing right now of, like retention, recruiting, can help with a lot of those areas too, right? By having an enhanced experience while you're serving. That's like, actually, it wasn't that bad, right? Like, and here's all the things we got to do while we're in the service. And we start hearing positive stories of service instead of, oh yeah, man, the place we live sucked, the housing sucked. This, like everything that, you oftentimes hear is negative. And I think a large part of it is because we're not just feeding the right information to help people feel like they belong and they have ownership in their story.
Right, and they go in there with that negative taste already. So when you go someplace with a negative taste, it's hard to get that negative taste out when you're already looking for that negative thing to be there. I'm going to this base, and the gates even smell. Yes, they do. Oh, they smell horribly. And then I drive through. It's horrible because that guy said it was horrible. Or you can go in with your eyes wide open, like you're trying to give them that option to say, hey, your eyes are wide open. Now let's hang out and do this and say, this is a good place. It's as good as you make it. Every base is as good as you make it, everywhere you go. So,
yeah.
And you've learned that. I mean, you've been around a lot. So Korea is another one where they'll tell you, everyone says it's horrible in Korea, but they've never been there, or they never left the base.
Yeah.
And that's the first part of not leaving the gate.
Yeah. Now we were at Fort Polk, man. To your point about it, it's what you make of it. I was actually amazed by the number of people who love being at Fort Polk, right? And usually, if you're a sportsman, right, you like being outside, hunting, fishing, all that, you're probably going to enjoy it down there, right? If you're heavy, like you're very religious, because there's a really good religious community down there, a couple of schools, all that, right? You'll probably like it down there, right? If you're a big city person, you need to go to the mall and like, okay, you're not gonna like it, but it's kind of interesting to hear, to your point about making it, the best or making it your own. That's what we found. Shoot, when we were at Fort Polk, that's where we learned how to make sushi, because there wasn't a sushi place around. So we're like, well, if we want this, we better figure out how to do it, right? So it became this like family experience where we learned how to do this thing together. But you're right, man. It's what you make of it, and it's that old prophecy of like, if you're looking for that negative thing, guess what? You're gonna find the negative thing, right? Like, it's just, that's what's gonna happen.
And speaking of sushi at now Fort John, I was down there for 12 days for rotation. I was staying in Alexandria, driving back, and I'd stop at this one gas station on the way in to get my breakfast every morning. It's a Why Not Stop, it was called. And they had gas station sushi in there. I was like, I would never eat that here, seeing what else is in this store, but it's here. Someone's going to eat it. So God bless them.
So somebody's rolling the dice.
You don't know what that is. That's not real sushi.
Gas station sushi, gas station hot dogs. Like, what are those things you used to get to shop at? The tornadoes, right? Was that those?
Tornadoes, yeah. They're still there. There's always a line waiting for the lady to unwrap them. Stuff. What are you doing? Don't know. Get something else. It's oatmeal over there. Oh no, don't want that.
Yeah, you're like, that's not going to do to your system what you hope.
It's in 20 minutes. The flash to bang time is not going to be what you think it's going to be. So when I first met you, I think it was a 2015-ish, 14-ish. We were with Team RWB at the time. And
yeah,
I think that's the first time we met. And it was great meeting. Then you disappeared for a while. And then we got pushed back together with Travis Foundation by Jason. He said, "Oh yeah, you got to link up with Chris." And then I met you at a Jeep event where you were in a Bronco. I still hold it again. I'm not holding against you. You had a Bronco Jeep, but we did get to meet up there, and then we started the chapter here. All paths became good. We keep those two things apart. It's all right. But you've been so many via veteran organizations, and now you're the veteran director of the Military and Veterans Initiatives for Tennessee. You're doing great things. Where do you see that initiative going, and how is it growing right now for you?
So, first of all, thanks for saying I'm doing great things and pointed out. You always need a little validation, right? But so the long-term piece of that, and it's interesting that whole position, the Veteran Fellowship Program, the Tri-Stars and Stripes Council, it all came from a group of folks that got together about 2 years ago with that goal, like you mentioned it earlier in the intro, of, hey, how do we make Tennessee the destination of choice for veterans and their families, right? And it was the understanding that workforce is a big part of it, but quality of life, right, is just as important, right? Because if you tell, a transition service member, hey, you got a great job, but I don't have an opportunity for your spouse, right? There's no education benefits for your kids, right? Like, okay, you got to have all those things to really make it attractive. And so that's kind of where we're at right now with that. And so for me, there's like two big pieces. The one is the Governor's Veteran Fellowship. And I literally had a talk today with the state of Kentucky about trying to do something too. So Tennessee was the very first one to do a Governor's Veteran Fellowship, but we were talking to several other states. I think that's where the evolution of that one's going to go, is building it out into other states, right? And it won't be us building it, but sharing the playbook with people and saying, hey, we were the first. We don't want to be the only, because if we can get 10 states to do this, right, that's 10 places where there's an opportunity for veterans to pursue something like that. And the really cool part about a program like that is the goal is for the participants to serve in state government, when they're done with their fellowship. And it's an opportunity that for a lot of us, you take off the uniform and you have that purpose, part of something bigger than yourself, all that. You actually can still find that by serving in state government, because you're shifting it, right? Now, instead of the citizens of the United States, I'm serving the citizens of the state I'm in, right? And so it's kind of interesting to see how that alignment is there. And then for the council itself, that big one, as we push forward, I think there's a lot of stuff. What's interesting about it is we've had a lot of participation across the realm, state government, corporate entities, nonprofits. And it's an area where, and I'm serious, like I know have seen this, but a lot of times in the veteran space, there's so much competition that it sometimes can be, some vitriol, right? And like it's not beneficial to our community. And so seeing all these different organizations come in with the understanding that, hey, you know what, there's enough food on the table for all of us. If we support each other and we bring more people to the state, we're increasing our opportunity to have resources and have funding and have all that, right? And so everybody is coming together under that understanding that the more people we bring, the more veterans and their families we bring into the state of Tennessee, the stronger the workforce is, the stronger our ability to support our military connected community is, right? And it's just a win all the way around. So I think that's where the long-term piece of the initiative is continuing to build out opportunities for us to come in here. And like I mentioned earlier, the education one's a big one, right? Like, hey, you can get me a job, that's great, right? But if you're also giving $5,000 towards my kids to go to college, like, okay, I'm listening, right? Like, and so that's a part of it too, is finding opportunities like that where we can build out, that sort of a benefit that really makes it more attractive for folks to come here or stay here.
Stay here, yeah. A lot of people do end up staying here, especially from two of the communities on post, I think you have more people that stay here is 5th Group and 160th. A lot of those soldiers, they stay in this area because, one, they've been here a long time. They don't PCS as much. And two, they like the area. They like what they see and they like where it's going. They want to be here. So if you can have them advocate for those outside the area to come here, or those who are on the fence of staying to stay, that's a win-win for the native and for the veteran community here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that part about the advocate. So one thing that we charge our fellows with is being ambassadors, right? And there's several things that they're, an ambassador for, but, one, they're an ambassador for opportunities like this to other members of the military that are transitioning wherever they may be, right, to present this opportunity. But one of the other big ones is they're an ambassador to people working in state government and then people just working in corporate America to see, okay, so the narrative that I heard on TV or whatever news source that, most veterans are broken and they're this and that's not actually accurate. Right. And so that's what we've been, harping on too, is like, hey, we need to continue to share the narrative of a veteran in your workplace is a huge benefit. We make it better. Right. And so, you want us on your team, you want the military spouse on your team. Right. And so that's one of the things too, that advocate part, having them serve as ambassadors with those messages and make people go, okay, well, I read this thing on Facebook but now you're right in front of me. Right. And so now I have firsthand experience of how awesome you are, how dedicated you are to our company, the difference you're making, all that. So I'm going to forget this thing I read on Facebook and focus on the fact that my experience is that a veteran or military spouse is awesome to have on my team.
Right. And the old, I guess, adage about veterans in the workplace is they're angry, they're gonna snap, they're gonna do this. That's old wives' tale. It maybe one in, I don't even know, there's probably a high number, one in that many will snap. But yeah, how many of actual non-veterans snap because you do something at work? There's a bad apple everywhere. So veterans go in there, they do bring a work ethic. They have to adjust their work ethic when they're doing it. So when you have the work ethic from the military, where it's basically checklist, and every day you do X amount of tasks, you just have to learn to slow down a little bit when you get to corporate America and do things that way. So you sit there and say, oh, everyone else is taking the 8 hours to get this test done. Maybe I should take 8 hours to do it, or maybe I should show them there's an easier way to do it. We can get 2 things done today instead of just one this week.
Yeah. No, and it's funny you bring that up. That's one thing we talk a lot with, with our veteran fellows, but just with transitioning service members in general, is that's part of the cultural fit that you're finding out, right? Because I think a term that we all are, can recognize is if you come in there and you're 100 miles an hour, all gas, no brakes, right? You can look like a spotlight ranger, right? Like you're just trying to outperform me. You're trying to make me look bad. You're trying this, you're trying that. You're trying to fit into somebody's team. Right. And so understanding how that works is a huge part. Right. And this is actually where there's been a really big push right now in corporate America for, the employee support groups, resource groups, or, call them for veterans to help with that. If you have somebody who's been there 5 years and understands the culture, right, he or she can sit down with me as a new hire and say, hey, let's just talk through. I'll give you some things because I know what you're thinking because I've been there. Right. So let me help you, with that. But those groups are also feeding the overall culture of that company or that corporation to say, hey, there's some things that are built specifically for a civilian that we can probably adjust a little bit to, make it a little bit more culturally astute to our veterans or military spouses that are coming in here. And so it's been interesting watching as that's kind of taken hold where people are really starting to understand that, we can't just expect a veteran to step into the workplace and do all of the work to try and become, onboarded and fit in, right? Like it has to be a mutual kind of, work environment there where, hey, maybe the company or the employees there are doing a little something too to make us feel more comfortable while I'm doing the things to stop dropping so many F-bombs and stop dropping so many acronyms, and like, so I got to do my part too, right? But there's definitely a combined effort there in order to really make me feel like I'm a part of your team. And to your point about the wives' tale, there's interesting. I think you saw, I think we talked about this, but there was a LinkedIn study in the past, 2 or 3 months, that pulled in some data. And one of the biggest things that people have talked about for years is this misnomer that, oh, hey, veterans are X% more likely to leave their first job in 90 days or 6 months or whatever. And the data actually shows that that's not true, right? A veteran it was like 20 or 21% more likely to stay in their first job for a little bit longer, because in today's society, like the workforce is they just bounce around a little bit, and I think for us, we come in with that sense of loyalty that we're like, well, I'm going to stick it out. Right. And so that's part of, to your point about the wives' tale, that's one of those ones where we just hear people say it, but now there's data that's like, well, actually that's not accurate. We're not just going to ghost you and take off one day.
I'm not just going to hand in my key to the office or my keypad and go. Like my first job, that's when I said most veterans leave. 87% they were saying at that time, even within a year. So my hard head said, I'm not going to be part of that statistic. I'll stay 2. And I stayed to 2 and then moved over where I am now. And to your point about the F-bomb, where I work now, it's a noun, verb, and adjective at our office because we're all veterans. So it's, if you don't say it, something they think something's wrong. That's when they start raising the hand. You need to go to the doc. Something wrong? What happened? Everything okay? But on the other side, you got to know when to hold them, know when to show them, so unfold them. So it's awesome. The other initiative we do this time of year, every year, is you are our skit master, our Manion Wad master of skit. Videos come out daily, pretty much every day to come out. We did one right here in the studio last year, actually.
Yeah.
I was hoping you pop in the character type and then went to you, but you let me down a little bit. That's why I'll bring Harry Carey back later. I'll bring him back as a rerun. Well, which you can leak anything. Which skits are you working on right now?
So there's a couple in the can. There's a Wedding Crashers one, there's a Pulp Fiction one, Back to the Future, they're working on so far we're 2 days in, and for the listeners, Amanda knows, so the Manion Wads, the Travis Manion Foundation has this one workout every year that's just a big thing. And so a couple of years ago, we started doing these videos, and we do one a day for 30 days leading up to it. And the idea is just to get people fired up, get them engaged. Back to that thing we're talking about, being a part of a community, right? Finding ways to say, we're asking you to come do a hard thing with us, but along the way, we're going to make you laugh and have a good time, right? Because we want you to feel like, you're a part of this journey as well. And and so that's where we're at with it. And it's kind of funny because this all started literally in the driveway, 2 years ago. We were sitting there. I was trying to shoot a video doing something. It was just it was a more serious, hey, go sign up for this WOD, whatever. And I'm like, this is boring. And I was in the driveway, and I saw my golf clubs, and I grabbed one, and we went straight for Happy Gilmore, and hey, 30 days till hockey tryouts, and Sarah just goes, just from behind the camera is like, the Manion Wad. I'm like, what? The Manion Wad? Like, oh yeah, right. And so but it was just this, and from there, you know how we do it. It grows legs, and you're like, well, okay, I guess we'll keep doing this. And they've been well received, so it's fun.
We did one with the machete outside the mall, so that was a good one.
Yeah.
And then in the cave, we did one, so that was a good one too. And I always was intrigued what's going to happen next. So keep them coming, and when you need me to make a cameo, I'll make a cameo.
Oh yeah, no, you're going to be one this year, absolutely. And I upped the game a little this year. We added a green screen, so that's why the first one this year I did was Friday Night Lights, and it was a locker room in the background, and so yeah, you got to keep just like we're talking about with your podcast and with equipment and stuff, right? You got to keep trying to make the process a little bit better, and so that was part this year, was adding a green screen to it so we could get a little fancy.
And back on the Manion WOD, if you don't mind, tell the audience when the WOD is, or when the time period the Manion WOD be, so maybe they can look out for it in their community, and of course in our great area of Tennessee here. Yeah,
so the Manion WOD, it's the weekend of, I think, the 26th through the 28th of April. And so most places will be doing it in that kind of a time frame. You might see some outliers just depending on how it fits in their schedule. But there's two options. One is you can do it in a CrossFit box, right, and actually do squats with a bar and all that kind of stuff. And then it's 29 squats, a 400-meter run. All right, you do that for 7 rounds. But the other one is you can do it, in a park and do do it with a ruck, do air squats, do whatever you want to do. And so there's people that are setting up both of those types, or you can just sign up and do it on your own. But when you go to the website, and you can literally just Google Manion WOD, and it'll come up with the Travis Manion Foundation website. And then you can search and see if there's one close to you if you want to sign up for it. I know here in Tennessee, we're still trying to nail down the specifics of one in Clarksville. Todd Sullivan, his gym out in Murfreesboro, they're doing one. They already have theirs. I think theirs is the 29th, but they're already set up to do theirs. And so, yeah, when you sign up, you're obviously your registration fee, you'll get, a cool shirt. They have a custom shirt every year they do. And if you decide to do it with your rucksack, you can pay a couple extra bucks and get a ruck patch to go on your rucksack as well. So yeah, that's it. So we're sitting 29, 28 days, something like that away from when it'll kick off.
Exactly. I know last year we did it right outside City Hall. We had the speaker out there. The mayor came out and spoke with us. He had the Garrett Sarmay came out there to speak, and actually he killed it. He killed that whole workout. He made it look like it was nothing. It was embarrassing to everyone around, but he looked awesome. Made us all feel bad with our life choices. But great on him. And it's not a competition like that, but some people just have that ability. And others are, like you said, for the camaraderie and the brotherhood, and sisterhood, to get out there and work out, have some sweat equity together, and have a good time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like, like deployments, right? I mean, the story, when you sit there and you tell the good stories are generally always around something that was tough, right? Something that sucked, something that, like, everybody like, oh man, let me tell you a story this day where everything was perfect. No, it's a day of like, no crap, there I was, right? And then suddenly there's mud and blood and like just all kind of, right? And so it's that same thing with workouts, right? You're like, hey man, we're going to sweat together. And like at the end of this, probably, be like, man, that sucked, but we're going to talk about it afterwards. And we're like, that was kind of cool. Thanks for doing that with me. Right. So yeah, I think that's where, for so many of us, that's where stuff like that, like rucking and CrossFit, has continued to be a part of our journey, because we grew accustomed to doing hard things with good people as part of our relationship building.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, Chris, we actually got a caller in for you here. Hey, Ty, jump in. Ty, can you hear us?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, we're doing good. Chris, this is Ty Cobb from Triple Threat Vets podcast, a good friend of ours at the show. He's calling in. He's our first caller in a long time, so welcome, Ty. And we lost him. All right.
Uh-oh.
You got scared of you, Chris. See, man, I told you.
He had an awesome name. He had an awesome name, too. He must catch that crap all the time. Ty Cobb. And you're like, I wonder if he played baseball growing up.
He's also a Campbell veteran as well. He was in 716th MPs for a while. So he has good blood in him, good roots in him.
Get some of that Tennessee brown water in him.
He said he was going to sing the division song real quick. Thanks, brother. But Chris, we talked about a lot of things you've done, you're doing. What's the top 5 things you think people need to do to be awesome as they, or have a successful transition and a better life as they get out of the military?
Man, top 5. Man, that's a loaded question there. But so I mean, first and foremost, the biggest thing, for me, it's all been about networking, right? And so I think people misconstrue networking sometimes, and we talk, oh man, you gotta get on LinkedIn and all this stuff. Like, no, the networking is literally getting to know people and doing it in like an organic, natural fashion, right? I don't call up Rich and say, hey, can I have a cup of coffee, walk in and hand him my resume and say, you have any jobs available, right? That's not networking, right? But actually sitting down, talking to you a little bit, finding about what you're into, finding about what you do, right? Start talking to you about it. We have a second cup of coffee, right? But forming something where now you're invested in there, because it's almost like a mentorship kind of thing too, right? By getting with people that have done this before. And honestly, I think a large part of that too, one thing that we struggle with as a community is we wait to do all of our things to get ready until right at the bitter end, right? And so when it's time to transition out, our entire network is filled with people who also are wearing a uniform, right? Or the guy or gal we know that got out 6 months ago and is like, oh, let me give you all my tips. Okay, that's great, and I appreciate it, right? But those tips would be way more valuable coming from someone who maybe never served in the military, but has been in corporate America for the last 20 years, killing it, right? And can help me understand how I can pursue those opportunities. I think that's the biggest one, is just continuing to build that out and understand when someone hands you their card or gives you their contact info and says, hey, give me a call sometime, that's a genuine opportunity they're giving you, right? Like there's not a lot of times people are like, oh man, I don't think he actually wants me to call you. No, they just gave you the gift of their time and offered you a little bit more of it, right? Because they want you to take them up on it. They want to talk to you. They want to see how they can help. I've yet to run into someone who has done that, whether they were a veteran or not, and not meant it. Every time it's been like, no, I said that because I want you to call me. I want to help, right? And sometimes maybe it's helping find a job or an education opportunity. Sometimes it might be, hey, call me and I know 3 other people that I need to connect you with because of the thing you're interested in. And let me see if I can do that, right? And they're helping you be better prepared. I think that the next one would be the educational piece, right? And I don't mean, like, oh man, make sure you go get your degree or whatever. I mean, identifying what you think, and we're back to that purpose piece, right? When you're getting out of the military, what do I want to do? What's going to get me out of bed every day to want to go and do this thing? What is it going to take for me to do that, right? Maybe you want to be a CPA. Cool. Then, you need to go get a degree in accounting to be prepared for that, right? Maybe you want to, start your own coffee truck, right? Cool. Well, you probably need to go and spend some time, learning how to roast coffee beans or like whatever the case may be, right? But looking into what you think that opportunity is, and then pursuing the things that are going to help you be successful in that. So I think a lot of us, we fall prey to this thing of like, well, I'll just look at it on YouTube, or my buddy's going to tell me this thing. And like, that all sounds good. But at the end of the day, if you're going to put, your money and, your heart and soul into something, right, you want to be as prepared as you can to be successful in that thing. Right. And, even stuff like Bunker Labs, right? Like going through their program, if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? Looking at stuff like that and saying, hey, let me go. And they've got a thing called the Launch Lab online that is free. And it'll literally take you from the A to the Z of running a business and dig in with you of all the little things, like not only just the nuts and bolts of business, but stuff like, okay, cool. You want to start a taco truck? Great. Let's do the market research. There's 10 taco trucks in your zip code. So a taco truck might not be the best investment, right, for you to actually have a sustainable income for your family, right? That's not to say you can't start that thing, but let's see, maybe there's a different flavor to it or whatever you might do, right? But there's so many resources out there that that you can get into and figure things out. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just being prepared, taking things at face value. Right, we build a lot of stuff in our own head about how difficult this is going to be, good and bad, right? Sometimes we undersell it, sometimes we oversell it. But having that wherewithal to go, to do the things we did in the military, right? And start things like a gap analysis, like, hey, I want to start a taco truck. What am I missing to do that? Right? Like, and start looking at stuff like that and figuring out, I want to be a CPA. I want to be an HVAC tech. What do I need to do that thing? Right. And start figuring out, if I got 12 months left till I get out, whatever, how do I build out a tracker, a milestone kind of thing that says, here's all the spots I need to hit, so that on day one out of the military, I'm ready to go, right, and ready to jump out there. I don't even know how many things that is now, Rich, but like, there's so many, just there's so many different things, that you can look at with it, but I think the big thing there is that going back to that purpose piece, right, of finding out, what is going to get me out of bed in the morning, right? Because again, a lot of times we get told, hey man, get a job, any job, right? Okay, a job is important, right? Don't get me wrong. But if I can find the job that actually is going to, be something that I want to be doing, right, then I'm going to have a much better transition piece. And it's actually funny. So I mentioned Bunker Labs because there was a conversation we had. It's been a couple months now, but so Blake Hogan, the CEO of Bunker Labs, he gave this discussion on when you're transitioning out of the military, the difference between like worthwhile and meaningful employment. And I'm probably not getting this exactly right, so hopefully if Blake tunes in later that he doesn't beat me up for this. But basically, like, the worthwhile employment piece is that job when you're getting out of the military that meets the basic needs, right? Like, it pays you well enough to be able to take care of your family and be financially solvent, right? It's in the right location for you, right? It's work that you're comfortable and qualified to do, right? It's basically that employment opportunity. To your point earlier, Rich, about like that 2-year thing you did, it gives me that landing pad when I'm getting out of the military to remove all that stress, right? But it's a place that I'm okay with, right? I'm not going to a job every day. I'm like, this is terrible. I don't want to do this thing. But while I'm doing that, I'm building my civilian resume, right? I'm showing that I can actually transition all these skills over into the civilian side. Right? I'm doing all these positive things. And then I can continue looking for that meaningful employment piece, right? And find the thing that meets all the other things that I want, right? That has the purpose and all that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting kind of thought process of, not just find a job, any job, but really find something that meets many of my needs, with the understanding that I'm probably not going to find something that meets all the things I want right off the jump, right? And that's okay, right? Like remove that stress point of having to find the perfect job and find the one that meets as many of the things as you can get, right? And get yourself rolling, get your family situated, and start figuring things out. Because we talk about our veteran fellows about this too. They're in this program for a year with the state of Tennessee. And one of the very first things we do is align them with a host agency within state government that meets up with their skill set or their interests, because we want them from day one to be able to jump in and start making that transition piece of going, okay, this is what I think I could do. This is what the MOS crosswalk said. Here's me actually doing it. And now I have something to put on a resume, because we look at it and go, you may not want to work in state government at the end of these 12 months, and that's okay. But now you'll have 12 months of experience to say, look, this isn't just the phrase that matches up with what a 19 Delta, like this is literally work I've been doing for the last year. And now I can talk about it to someone in an interview process and really showcase the value I'm bringing to your team.
Definitely. And the best time to find a job is when you have a job, because then you're not stressing over it. You have a job, you do it. And like I said, build that work, get on LinkedIn, because if you're not LinkedIn, you're linked out. I learned that saying right away when I was going through. That's the only thing I learned in tech, really, was if you're not thinking that. Everything else was kind of, so I learned everything else on the fly. After Bunker Labs is great for me. I had a great time with them and other organizations. And as I'm speaking of LinkedIn and Facebook, what's the best way to contact you to maybe learn more about Grid Square Recon or learn more about Chris?
LinkedIn is going to be the best way. Yeah. And I say that with the addendum that for some reason my app's been crashing all day today, so I keep getting notifications and I can't get on. It's killing me, because I think once you really get into the LinkedIn infrastructure on the professional side, right, like it's something that for me, I see it as a two-way street of having the opportunity to give back. But LinkedIn's the best way to get a hold of me and contact and kind of keep up with some of the stuff we're doing here and in the state of Tennessee, because I try and share the journey in there, because I think it's important, just like you guys do with the show. It's important to keep showing these stories of success and these positive stories so that other people in the community are encouraged, right? That there's opportunity for them out there, because you do hear that narrative out there about, oh gosh, better in this, better in that. Like, okay. And some of that's probably true, right? But I think there's enough of us out there, who have found our own success and our own path that we can help others find that too, right? And we can showcase those stories. And so that's one of the reasons why I operate my LinkedIn the way I do, because I want to encourage people to jump in there and see that there's 100 things you can do, man. Just grab them and go with it and pursue your dream, and take all the stuff that you brought with you from the military, right, and turn it into a positive. Definitely.
Thanks again for stepping up today and saying, yes, I'll do this instead of producing videos today. Took you away from your production time today, and I know they'll come out tomorrow. But thank you again for stepping up today and doing this for us.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, Rich. And I mean, happy to do this anytime, if you have other spots that pop open, we can go down a million different rabbit holes with this stuff. So obviously there's plenty of stuff to talk about with the veteran community. So we'll never be lacking for a conversation topic,
Exactly. Well, you have a good night. Say hello to Sarah and the goats and Cadence for me. And I'll see you in I guess about a week or so with the next event.
Yeah, brother. Sounds good.
Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thanks.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation Show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.